Welcome back this week for another episode of Banter from the Bench podcast. We are in episode number 11 now. We have actually got a pretty fun episode today to tee up what we're going to dive into. Summer League recap. Honestly, I think there's some pretty good stories here. We're going to talk a little bit about the USA Olympic basketball team, and baseball's picking back up now as teams are entering the trade deadline, trying to shape their roster to hopefully make a postseason run. So we've got plenty of good stuff on the lines. Get ready to dive in.
Sounds right.
Thank you all for tuning in to another episode with us here. As Kevin alluded to, we got a pretty fun and filled episode with some different topics we maybe haven't covered much of, if any. So looking forward to getting started. And one topic we have covered quite a bit. I think we can say we're maybe the official number one podcast of Summer League basketball. So we'll jump into something a little bit more familiar here to kick things off. But Summer League has officially wrapped up. And before we get started, we're going to kind of look at some guys we thought did well, some guys we thought did bad. Kevin, your pick for the Memphis Grizzlies, they almost pulled it off. How are you feeling about that?
It was close. I was close. I thought the overtime, for those that didn't watch, they played the Miami Heat in the championship. Overtime rules are the first team to score 120 wins the game. I don't know if that number changes based on what the total score is going into overtime, but for that game, it was the first team to get to 120 wins. It's a 2-point game. Final score was 118 to 120, but the Grizzlies had a nice run. It was fun to not only watch the Bulls, but just watch a different team, watch some other rookies. So we were so close, but couldn't get it done.
Yeah, welcome to the club with the rest of us, because you know what? Unfortunately, only one team wins the highly coveted Summer League title. So welcome back to the other side. But we'll jump into some individual performances here and kick things off. I think it'd be good to kind of touch base on some guys we think did well, some guys we think that didn't do well. And for those who are maybe tuning in for the first time, or those who are coming back or haven't listened in a few episodes, we do like starting some with some national topics first, then we dive into Chicago. So we will talk about Summer League, but not really going to be much Bulls talk here. That'll be for the back half of the episode. But I can go ahead and get started here. Guys that I thought ended up playing well, I kind of stuck to rookies, and it's just kind of my big draw to the Summer League is really just keeping up with the rookies and seeing how they're doing. So one guy who started off slow but ended up doing pretty well by the end of it was Dalton Knecht. He finished averaging 21.3 points per game and 5.3 rebounds per game. I know he was struggling in his first couple games in that California Classic, but seemed to have started to turn it on through the remainder of the Summer League. So I'm sure Lakers fans were pretty happy to see that. He's obviously a guy that's been around for a while, so someone you hope kind of steps in and plays well. So he looks like bigger picture wise was able to do that. Another guy I liked that I thought did well was one of my personal favorite guys in this past draft class, Reed Sheppard from Kentucky. Just based off his skills, I kind of expected him to do good too. He's a shooter, he can score. And he showed he was able to do that in the Summer League by averaging 20 points per game. But the thing I also liked about him is he contributed more than just scoring. So he also averaged 4.8 rebounds per game and 5.3 assists per game. So making some plays for his teammates there as well, which is always a good thing. And then the last guy I had was if you're a listener, was my guy. I thought the Bulls were going to have a chance of taking in the draft, and that was Ronald Holland. I did get a chance to watch him a little bit, and he was another guy that started off slow, turned it on towards the end of the Summer League. Was not a very good high-volume shooter by any means, but as one of the youngest players in the NBA draft coming into Summer League and putting up some some numbers was good for him and good for the Pistons because obviously they need all the help they can get.
Oh,
Uh,
especially with scoring, dude. Oh my God.
yeah, yeah. So Holland ended up averaging 18.8 points per game and 6.5 rebounds per game. So those were three of the guys I thought stood out. Kev, if you want to touch base on some guys you thought stood out.
Definitely, I can dive into some guys that I thought played well during the summer league. One of them I already talked about in last episode. Continued to play well. Jordan Miller out of Miami. He finished the summer league with 25 points per game. Almost finished with a scoring title. In my opinion, should have been the MVP of the summer league, but he shot over 50% from the field in the process of averaging 25 points per game. So pretty nice summer league for him. Another guy I got to get really familiar with, and a reason why I picked the Grizzlies, Gigi Jackson from Memphis. He had 22 points per game, eight and a half rebounds per game. Honestly, just looked really aggressive. He got plenty of experience last year in the NBA due to some injuries, and it really looked like it out there. Like he's used to playing in the bigs, and he was one of the leaders of the Grizzlies during this year's summer league play. And the other guy that was a leader for them was Scottie Pippen Jr. I remember him making a run during March Madness when he was coming out of college, and I really liked his game. He doesn't shoot himself in the foot very much. He's a pretty good scorer. He averaged 21 points per game, 8 assists per game, and 5 rebounds per game. So overall, really impressive play, especially when you think about the fact that this is Summer League. You don't really see assists piling up that much because it's just like a shooter shoot mentality. And that's why I think guys like Dalton Connect and guys like Reed Shepherd did play so well, is because the Summer League is built out perfectly for guys like that. But for him to have 8 assists per game and then pair that with 5 rebounds per game, I thought was really impressive. So those were my 3.
Yeah, all good choices. And obviously you were too, kind of looking through a lot of summer league stats and stuff, and just overall it seemed like there were a lot of guys that kind of held their ground this year. And a lot of those guys were first, second year players, which is always a good thing to see. But for as many guys that performed well, there were obviously a bunch that didn't perform so well, which brings us into our next little topic here. Is we're going to look at some guys we thought didn't play well. I can kick things off with mine here, and the first one I have is Grady Dick from the Toronto Raptors, and he averaged 11 points per game on 30% from the field. Now, he only played in 2 games, so stats are kind of, nothing to completely write home about. But for a guy that people really love, people really hype up, and a guy that seems like he's a big piece of what Toronto is planning on doing in the future, and a guy that played a lot of minutes in the NBA last year, you want to see more out of him in the summer league there. I think the 11 points per game and the 30% shooting, I don't care if that's 1 game or 2 games, like you want to see more out of that. So I had Grady Dick was my first one, and my other one, a little bit of a kind of different scenario here, is Zach Edey. So Zach Edey, he only played 8 minutes. In those 8 minutes, he averaged 6 points per game and 3 rebounds per game. So that's good for 8 minutes. The reason I have him down here as bad is because he left with a ankle sprain. Now, doesn't seem like it's going to affect him heading into the season, but not something you want to see out of a top 10 pick as they're just kind of getting their feet wet in the summer league. He's the guy that's played a lot of college ball, so it wasn't like mandatory for him to get all the minutes he could in the summer league, but still, you never like seeing one of your top picks go down with an injury. So I have him listed as another bad guy, but for a slightly different reason.
Especially a guy that size too, right? Like you don't want ankle stuff to start popping up this early, because who knows if this is something that could linger when he's as big as he is.
That's a big man.
Yes, it is. Did you have any other guys you wanted to add to that, or you want me to dive into mine?
You know what? I actually did have one more. Thank you for reminding me. I talked about him before, but I got to talk about him again. Alex Sarr, number 2 overall pick to the Wizards. Probably the worst guy in the summer league, in my opinion. His final stats were 5.5 points per game, 7.8 rebounds per game. So filling up the stat sheet a little bit, but the thing that stands out to me the most is 19% from the field through all of summer league. That is horrific. He went through a phase where he shot like 1 of 21 at some point. And
Yeah.
when you're taking second overall and you're a little bit of a prima donna and you turn down workouts to go number one overall, like you better back it up on the court, buddy. It don't matter if you're playing summer league, playing regular, you're playing pickup basketball with guys in the park. Like you're always going to have a target on your back, and I think this is just the absolute worst case scenario and worst look for Alex Starr going into his rookie year. So with that being said, I'm sure he'll probably set records and win Rookie of the Year.
Just based on the way this podcast goes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are some good names. I only had a couple here on my end, but I did have a couple different names. One of them is an obvious one, Bronny James. For somebody that was hyped up as much as he was, he just, I mean, I won't sugarcoat it. He looked like shit. He finished with 8 points a game, shot 35% from the field. I know for a fact he was held out of the last game. I don't know if he was held out of the last two games, but yeah, just really not an impressive summer league.
He played in that second to last game, and I think he had like 8 points, which might have been his summer league high.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there you go. The other guy I had was actually Marcus Sasser. Now, he did average 12 points per game, but he shot 33% from the field. And for a guy that is known for his shooting, he got drafted for his shooting. I think he averaged close to like 40 to 45% shooting in college, flirted with somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20 points per game. And, you know, for him to come into the summer league when, like we talked about, for guys that shoot a lot, this is a great environment for them. He just didn't really look that great to me. So I would have liked to see a little bit more out of Marcus Sasser, especially for him being such a high volume shooter. But, you know, it could have just been a tough stretch for him at the same time. So I guess we'll see what this season looks like for him. We are going to stay on the topic of basketball and just transition more to the Olympic basketball. So USA basketball opens up group play against Serbia on the 28th, and we're recording on Wednesday, July 24th. So 4 days from now, they're going to play South Sudan on the 31st and Puerto Rico on August 3rd. From what you've watched with Olympic basketball so far, with, you know, prelims, how are you feeling? How do you think this is going to work out for them?
I think they'll probably run through this little group stage here fairly easily. I know the game circled on everyone's calendar is going to be South Sudan. I don't for people who didn't pay attention or might not have heard. USA beat South Sudan in an exhibition game by 1 point, which would have been one of the bigger upsets in sports history had South Sudan pulled it off. Carlick Jones, former Chicago Bulls legend, had a triple double in that game, and I believe he was the first player to ever have a triple double against Team USA. So
Yeah.
to me, I kind of see that as a little bit of a fluke. Now, not to take anything away from South Sudan, that's a good performance for them. But I think when you just look at Team USA's roster, it would be shocking if they didn't come away with the gold medal. Obviously, coming out of their group stage, I think they'll win all three games. Now, for me personally, I think the interesting game to watch out of those three is going to be that Serbia game because they got Nikola Jokic, Bogdanovic, and Nikola Jovic. I don't know how to, the guy for the Miami
Yeah.
Heat.
Yeah, you said it right.
Yep, and I think that might be a pretty competitive game. Just Jokic alone, you know, he can do some damage. So they'll have their hands full there in their first game. But all in all, I think this should be a fairly easy run through this little opening stage round, and kind of expect Team USA to continue to follow that trend once they make it out of here.
Look, I watched the second half of that South Sudan game. Do you actually know what the spread was to start the game? I heard it live on TV.
I'm going to guess like 27 and a half.
Dude, it was like 42 and a half.
Nice.
Just insane spread. And it was, honestly, the game was so entertaining to watch. You want to see USA perform better, obviously, than that. But I think that they're Right now, they're in a situation where they're just trying to figure out how to mesh because we have the fortune of having all of these stars from the NBA on our team, but it's like, who's our starting five? Who's coming off our bench? Who's our sixth man? Like who's playing well with who? And I think that that's all they're trying to figure out right now. I'd be shocked if they don't win the gold, but there is some growing pains along the way, clearly, beating South Sudan by 1 point. I pulled up the rosters actually, and there's a team here that is really interesting to me. I don't know how they're going to do, but Team Australia has Dyson Daniels, Josh Giddey, Patty Mills, Josh Green from the Hornets, Joe Ingles, Matt Deladova, Dante Exum, Jock Landale, and then some other guys that haven't made it in the NBA yet. But like when you look at a roster like that, I'm like, a lot of these guys are just really like tough, gritty type of players. So I personally wouldn't be shocked to see Team Australia go on a little bit of a run. You've got Team Canada as well. They've got Lujan Stort, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. They've got Jamal Murray, Dwight Powell, Trey Lyles, R.J. Barrett, Kelly Olynyk, Dylan Brooks. So they've got a pretty nice team, and we can go on and on and on about all of these other rosters. But those are just a couple that I looked at, and I was like, okay, I could see either one of these teams making a little bit of a run here. Have you had a chance to look over any of the rosters?
No, haven't really, aside from the ones that we talked about here in this opening stage. And then I did watch their exhibition against Canada. So I got to see some of that, but I don't know off the top of my head what the score was, but USA did play Argentina, I think, too, in some of these exhibition games. And I think it was an under 10-point game. I want to say it was like maybe an 8-point game was the final score. So they obviously clearly were able to hang in there. And I'm not really putting a whole lot of stock into this pre-Olympic stuff, but for some of these other teams, just to say they competed with Team USA, I think that's a pretty good thing for them. But
Yep.
once the games get for real and they start meaning more, I think Team USA they should run away with it.
Yeah, I think they just need to feel the heat a little bit more, if we're being honest. Like, they're just kind of having fun right now. It's just, like, basically warm-ups to them.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then one thing I wanted to touch on personally, just because it is the utmost highest honor, LeBron James and Coco Gauff was actually chosen as the other athlete to carry the flag in during the opening ceremony. So you'll see LeBron carrying Team USA's flag and Coco Gauff carrying the flag. So congrats to both of them. That is probably the highest honor in really all of sports. So that'll be really cool for both of them to experience. All right, so we're going to shift over to some baseball talk now. All-Star game's done with. Teams have already started picking up play here again after the break. What me and Sean are going to do, we're going to take a look at the current standings, give our thoughts on where these teams stand, and maybe who we think will win each division. So if you want, Sean, I can read these off and we can give our thoughts.
Aye, Captain.
Okay. We'll start with our own division. So let's start with the AL Central. Right now, Cleveland Guardians have a 5-game lead over Minnesota and Kansas City. Personally, I said this before, I think it's Cleveland all the way. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if Minnesota did somewhat of a sale at the trade deadline. Kansas City, I think, might do the opposite, just do like a little bit of a mini buy. But I think it's the Guardians.
Yeah, I think Cleveland will win it too. I do think Minnesota will buy at the deadline. I don't think they're going to buy anything significant, but I do think they will take on some players. They're just too injury prone this year and in years past for them not to do anything but add, in my opinion. But I know they're talking about shedding payroll a little bit too, so they could maybe do a little bit of buying and selling. But regardless, I got Cleveland taking this division too. And I think Cleveland's another team that'll add. So
definitely, yeah, Cleveland's definitely going to add. Maybe even some from the White Sox if they're feeling crazy. But AL East, we've got the Baltimore Orioles. They have a 1.5 game lead over the Yankees. I think we both picked the Orioles earlier on this year.
Yeah, when they were in second.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be them. I think the Orioles win. I mean, they're playing really well right now. Obviously, they're in first place, but I think that they're going to make a pretty big splash and bulk up their roster even more come the trade deadline. So I'm going to say Orioles.
Yep, I'm sticking with the Orioles as well. I think overall they're better than the Yankees right now, and I think in a week they will be significantly better on paper than the Yankees. So I'm sticking with Baltimore.
Okay. AL West, we've got Houston and Seattle that are tied right now. Texas is 3 games back.
Lots happening in this division.
Yeah, this one was hard for me. Now, Houston, historically, since they've been good, has been pretty aggressive at the trade deadline. Seattle tends to pick up some pieces, but they tend to pick up the right pieces at the trade deadline. So for that reason, I'm going to say Seattle wins this division. What do you think?
I had Seattle before, and I'm sticking with it. I think that I think they'll add. I don't know how much they're going to be willing to, but Houston's got a lot of injuries to their starting rotation and stuff, and sure they're playing better, but I think that'll just come back to bite them at some point. So I'm sticking with Seattle.
Okay, I like it. AL wild card. We've got the Yankees, we've got the Royals, and we've got the Twins that currently occupy the spots. Boston is 1 game back. Seattle's 3.5 back, and Tampa Bay is 4.5 back. I think Minnesota is a team that loses out on a wild card spot. I wouldn't be shocked to see Seattle being the team to jump them if they don't win their division. Boston also only being 1 game back is another team that there's been a lot of smoke with them around the deadline. I know James Paxton was just released. There's been a lot of smoke with him going to Boston because I think he pitched there before and pitched pretty well for them. So I think it's going to be Yankees, Royals, and I'll say Boston since I picked Seattle to win the division.
So similar but a little bit different from you. I got Yankees, Minnesota, and Boston taking the 3 wild card spots.
Interesting. So you're
Royals,
in on Minnesota.
Royals, I think, are a little bit ahead of their time. I think they didn't even expect to be in this position right now. I think they will add, and I just think that maybe a little bit of their inexperience will cause them to drop out of the playoffs. But I mean, if the season ended today, I think you'd say it's a really successful season for Kansas City, and I think they'll build on that moving forward. I just don't think that this is going to be the year they make the playoffs.
Okay, that's fair. If we look at NL side of things, we've got NL East. Philadelphia Phillies have a 9-game lead over Atlanta. I think this is the most obvious one here.
Yeah, this isn't even a debate.
Yeah, it's Phillies.
Atlanta's winning that division.
Yeah. Right.
No, Philly, they'll run away with that. They look like another team that's going to add to. So,
yep. Agree. And NL Central, Milwaukee's got a 5-game lead over the St. Louis Cardinals, 7-game lead over Pittsburgh. You and I both were on the same page here. We said Milwaukee from jump.
I didn't.
You said the Cardinals?
No, I said I think the Cubs would make a run for it.
Oh, you did. Yeah, little fucker. Well, you're wrong. Milwaukee's got a 5-game lead. I picked the Brewers, so I'll stick with the Brewers.
I'm flipping. I'm going to St. Louis. I think St. Louis will. I think they got something going for them, and I think that in a week from now they'll be a little bit more improved, and I think talent wise they're better than Milwaukee. So I just think they'll catch up to Milwaukee eventually, and I think St. Louis will win the Central.
Interesting. Okay. NL West, we've got the Dodgers 8.5-game lead over San Diego. I think this one's
not changing.
It's very similar to NL East. I think it's Dodgers. So then the wild card that leaves us with Atlanta, the Cardinals, and the Mets, all currently occupying the top spots. Padres are only a 0.5 game back. Diamondbacks are 1.5, and Pittsburgh is also 1.5. So for me, man, I hate to say this, but I think Atlanta's going to drop off. I think the Mets stay. I think the Cardinals stay. And if I have to replace Atlanta, I'm actually gonna say Pittsburgh. I think the Pirates will jump in and win a wild card spot.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a little nutty here.
Oh,
I got Atlanta and New York dropping off. I got St. Louis winning the division. So theoretically, that puts Milwaukee in the wild card. I'll stick with Milwaukee in there. I'm gonna have
okay.
San Diego making it as well, and then I'm also gonna have Pittsburgh in there as the third team. So
Okay.
Milwaukee, San Diego, and Pittsburgh are my final three.
Do you think San Diego makes a big splash at the deadline?
I don't know what they can. I mean I think a big splash for them would be Garrett Crochet. Spoiler alert to later on in the episode. I don't think they're the team that gets him.
Hmm.
So from that perspective, I don't know where they would pivot. Um, like, would you consider Jack Flaherty a big splash? If so, then like he could be a
Yeah.
guy that they get. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're going to be able to compete with some of the packages that these other teams can put together. So I won't put it against them because they typically always do something, but I just think when you look at the Dodgers or you look at the Mariners or you look at the Orioles, there's going to be a lot of teams wanting to talk to them before they even pick up the phone and call San Diego.
Yep. They just historically do make big moves, so
Yeah.
that question always has to be top of mind. Cool. Well, that's it. That's all we have for baseball talk as far as like national coverage goes. Um, Sean, I know this is a story you particularly had some interest in here with MLS. There was some history that was made. Do you want to dive into that?
Yeah. So, pretty cool thing that happened in the MLS this past weekend. Uh, Kevin Sullivan became the youngest player in Major League Soccer to play in a game, 14 years old, and
That's
he
crazy.
is a professional athlete. Now, he made his debut on July 17th for the Philadelphia Union of MLS, and Kevin Sullivan beat probably a guy most people know, Freddie Adu, for youngest player to debut in MLS history. He beat Adu by 2 weeks, and um, all in all, just a super, super cool and crazy story that we just really don't see too often. Now, one other cool part about this is Kevin's older brother Quinn also plays for the Philadelphia Union, and
Oh wow.
in the game that Kevin debuted, Quinn scored a goal. So kind of cool that they both got to contribute there. But just a really really interesting story, I think. And I was reading a little bit on it, and there's like labor laws that they have to follow because this kid's 14 and he's a minor. And I just think like, gosh, when I was 14, I was probably, I don't know, playing Yu-Gi-Oh, um, playing video games and
Crazy
hanging out,
Bones.
eating pizza, drinking a 2 liter of Mountain Dew, and staying up till about 4:30 in the morning. When you got a kid now who's that same age and he's a professional athlete, it's just really really interesting to me. And the thing that I am really curious about is where this goes from here. Like, is he going to be that guy that comes in at 14 and keeps following that path of being a great athlete, and does he have a great career for himself, or does he just eventually get to a point where he starts playing against kids his age and maybe he's not as good as some of the other kids around him once they get to the same age. But just an overall really interesting story that I thought was worth talking about. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, you're definitely testing the limits of sports, right? Because 14 years old is crazy. 18 years old is crazy young, but 14 years old is just insane. Um, it kind of makes me laugh because it's like, if this guy wins a championship, wins a Major League Soccer championship, like he can't legally pop champagne for another 7 years. So this kid could win seven straight championships and can't even legally pop champagne until his seventh, which is crazy to think about. But I think it's a cool story. I just hope it's a good story. I hope that, with him being this young, they do what's right, and take their time with this kid, because a lot of times we do see kids jump into sports too early and not work out. I mean, even dating back to like when the NBA would let guys come out straight out of high school, like that was always a huge gamble because they never really knew what type of player that athlete was going to be. So 14 years old is even younger than that. So it's definitely something to watch. I think it's a really cool story. I just hope
Yeah.
it ends up being a good story for him.
Here's the thing that I think of too, which is just the craziest part about all this is just the fact that he's 14. Like, is he still going to school? Like, did he play in the
Yeah.
MLS and did he have to show up to school the next day? Like, oh, hey, Kevin, how was your night? What'd you do? I played it for the Philadelphia Union. It was pretty cool. Got like 15 minutes of time on the field, and now I'm
Dude,
here in social studies class. Like how I don't know how this works with like school and stuff, but like I'm sure
yeah.
he's going to school in some fashion. It'd be hilarious though if he like had to go to class the next day.
You know what's even crazier? His mom still has to drop him off at practice and games.
Yeah.
He
What if
can't
she says
even-
no?
That's what I'm saying. He can't even drive himself to
Or
games.
like, what if he gets grounded? Can he not go play? Like, hey, you're grounded.
Yeah.
You can't go to the Union game.
Right, exactly. You're not playing this game. It's just crazy, but yeah, kind of a cool story we had to talk about. So here we are. All right, so let's dive into some national WNBA. Usually we just talk about the Chicago Sky, a lot about Angel Reese for obvious reasons, but WNBA just had their All Star game this weekend out here in Phoenix. And the WNBA All Stars beat Team USA 117 to 109 this past Saturday. Now I think I'm saying her name correctly. Arike Ogunbowale scored 34 points for Team WNBA. Angel Reese had a double-double, of course, 12 points, 11 boards, and Caitlin Clark only finished with 4 points and had 10 assists in the process. What were your thoughts?
My my initial reaction is Team USA should have to hand over all their jerseys to the WNBA All Stars,
Yeah, it's
and
pretty bad, dude.
and that should be the new Team USA. But I don't know how long they've been doing this format for. For those who maybe haven't listened since the jump here, I'm a WNBA fan as of this year, so pardon me for not really knowing a whole lot about the history. But I did see that this did happen a few years ago too, where the WNBA All Stars beat Team USA. Now, I didn't look at rosters or anything like that, so I don't know if it was like how it is now, but like every top player in the WNBA is playing for Team USA. Like it's actually
Yeah.
pretty crazy that the WNBA All Star team was able to beat them, and they kind of were in control for like the whole game too, from what I saw. But I mean, it's a cool story. I think it's funny that like Angel Reese gets a lot of flack for the way she plays, and then she goes out and has a double double against them too. It's like that's a little poetic justice right there. I like that. And the cool part too was just seeing them interact with players they don't typically interact with. So like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, two people that really don't like each other on the court, but they had fun playing together. They linked up for a couple of points and things like that. So it was fun seeing them play together because we unless they both eventually play for Team USA or this scenario again, we might not see it very often. So
Chicago Sky, you mean? Unless
yeah.
they both play for Chicago Sky.
Yeah, maybe that'd be something. But like all in all, just cool, good for the WNBA All Stars, and I'm sure Team USA will be just fine once the Olympics start. But hard not to be really disappointed in them. I can't imagine what that locker room felt like after.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what the spread was at the start of that game. I feel like Team USA probably would have double-digit spread.
You
But
didn't go?
no, man, no. I was busy just hanging out with the ones that didn't make the All-Star team. So
You had one job. I told you to go.
sorry, I actually had another job. That's why I didn't go.
Doesn't matter.
Well, that's it for national coverage. This is typically when we make the shift over to Chicago sports stories and start talking about what we noticed there, some headlines in Chicago sports. So If you're a national listener, now would be the time to jump off. If you want to hear more about Chicago sports, then feel free to stay and hang out. But Chicago stories. So I think the easy place to start here would be to talk about the White Sox because the trade deadline is 6 days away. It is on the 30th. So me and Sean put together a list of players who have been floated out there to potentially be traded to another team and our predictions on where we think they're going to end up. Now, I'm going to preface this. We know how mine and Sean's predictions typically work out. So don't come at us in our DMs if they go to another team because this is pretty common. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, if we're right, we're fucking geniuses, okay? So that's it. So let's start with the biggest name of all, Garrett Crochet. Sean, where's he going?
I went back and forth on this one quite a bit. I think it's a two-team race. I think it's between the Dodgers and the Orioles. And I picked the Orioles because not only do I want him to go there, I think they have the best possible ammunition to be able to pull off a move like this, which is going to cost a lot for whoever gets him. So I went with Baltimore, kind of a little personal hope/choice, but also looking at, hey, who can really do this? It was down to those teams. I think the White Sox are going to be seeking prospects more than anything, and I think Baltimore has a package of what they ideally would like. So I got the Baltimore Orioles. Splish splash. Welcome to Birdland.
I picked the same team for different reasons. Yes, they've got the players to put a package together that can land Garrett Crochet. But I think they're also going to have the urgency. I think Chris Getz has proven to us when he made trades in the offseason, he's not afraid to do trades early. Look at the Dylan Cease trade. He's not afraid to do trades early. He doesn't have to wait up until, an hour before the deadline closes.
Yeah.
I think the Orioles are going to come
Oilers.
in with way.
Yeah.
That's a difference. That's a different story.
That's a prediction, buddy.
I think the Orioles are going to come in with a lot more urgency than the Dodgers would, and that's why I picked them here. So I'll say Baltimore Orioles. I also think it'll get done either a day before free agency closes or 2 days before.
Yeah, I think this probably will get done a little bit in advance. It's Wednesday night. Garrett Crochet pitched Tuesday, so last night. And I fully kind of convinced myself that this was the last time he was pitching for the White Sox. He is scheduled to start on Sunday. He still might be here Sunday. I don't know if they'll actually let him throw, though. I don't think they can. I think that's a little bit too risky. But maybe they deal him before, and he just goes off and pitches for his next team on Sunday. But yeah, I'm not confident that it'll get done by Sunday, but I do think it'll get done before Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central Time, and I think there'll definitely be working towards getting a deal done by the time he's scheduled to make his next start, which I think is why they won't even throw him out there. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll get more wind on that whole process here soon because it's only a few days away before he's scheduled to start again. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think if he starts Sunday, it's going to be like 2 innings. But I'm with you. I don't think he does. If he does, then clearly that means a deal's not imminent because even if you're talking with a team, there's no reason to put him out there. So no imminent deal if you see Garrett Crochet his next start.
And you know what? If this is the end and he did make his last start, man, like that was fun. White Sox have not been a team that have been exciting to watch, but every fifth day when Garrett Crochet was on the mound, I would get excited to watch him pitch. I wish they could keep him around and they would extend him, but we know how that organization operates. They probably lowballed him and just walked away from it. Now, playing devil's advocate, I also know trading him can really help the organization too. So I'll miss having him play in Chicago, but I'll be happy with what he ends up probably bringing to the organization in terms of a trade package, and I'll probably follow him around, especially if he goes to like Baltimore. Like that'll be so fun to watch that team with Garrett Crochet. If it's the Dodgers, I can't say I'll be as excited. I'm kind of sick of them, but I'll still follow him and watch him and see how he goes. And, hopefully come October, he's a big part of a deep playoff run and he can start being on a winning team and experiencing that because, he's been hurt. He's worked his butt off from a bullpen guy to a starting pitcher. So he deserves a good shot to win a World Series. And hopefully the White Sox can send him to Baltimore where he can get that done.
If he does go to the Dodgers, I'll just make sure to go when pitchers and catchers report because they share the same spring training facility as the White Sox, for those that you don't know. And I will tell them, hey, Sean says hi. So you'll be covered either way.
Cool.
Next player, Luis Robert Jr. Sean, lay your prediction.
Another one I went back and forth on. Now, I didn't go back and forth on two different teams. I went back and forth on, is he actually going to get traded or is he not? A big part of me feels like he's not going to get traded this deadline.
Yep.
But that's no fun. We're not here to talk about guys who aren't getting traded. Damn it. We're talking about where guys are going. So you know what? I said, hey, we're going to figure this out. We're going to send him to a team. So I picked the Dodgers to get him. I think they're going to make a big move, and I wouldn't be shocked if he was on the pitching side, but no matter what, I think that they are looking to make a splash, maybe a couple. I know outfield is definitely a need for them. They've also been in the mix for Randy Arozarena. They're a team that is not afraid to spend money. They're a team that is not afraid to blow through the luxury tax. They love controllable players. So getting Luis Robert, or I should say controllable big league players. So getting Luis Robert with his control, I think would be really appealing to them. And he would be a guy that they would be willing to pull the trigger for a bigger move. Not that they're afraid to before, but it would obviously cost a decent amount too. But I think that it is a price that they would be willing to pay. So I have him going to the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. My prediction is a team making an aggressive move. You look at the Philadelphia Phillies, they already know they're the best team in their division. Well, yep. They're going to land Luis Robert and let the world know we're also one of the best teams in baseball. So I have him going to the Philadelphia Phillies.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think fit-wise it makes a lot of sense for him too, and for the controllable years. They have somebody like Schwarber, but I don't know what his buyout is. If they're looking to save some money there, they could look at what his buyout is at the end of the year or move some other pieces. But I'm going to say Luis Robert, if he is moved, he's going to go to the Philadelphia Phillies.
They have Dombrowski in their front office too, and he literally doesn't care about prospects. He'll part with any of them. So I think like if I had to bet on Luis Robert going to a team, I would comfortably bet the Phillies being that team.
Yep, I think so. All right, another guy in the rotation for the White Sox, Eric Fetty. Where do you have him going?
This is an interesting one because he's also controllable, and he's kind of like a guy we didn't expect to be in this situation. Should have been an all-star. Obviously, they're only going to send one representative from the poor White Sox, but if there were one person to replace someone on the pitching staff of the AL, he probably would have been the next in line. So he should have a pretty big market. A lot of teams that are interested in him. I think he's only getting paid like $7.5 million, which is nothing for this year and next year. So for him, I got the Cleveland Guardians pulling the trigger and getting him. I think he fits kind of what their organization would be willing to do, where you can call it they can convince themselves that's a big splash, and it could be like he could do very, very well for them the next year and a half. But they also have like the prospect pool and capabilities of going bigger. I just don't think they will, and I feel like Eric Fetty's kind of that guy that fits that tier below, like a big splash. So I feel like he lines up like organizational philosophy wise with something Cleveland would do. I also think he's a guy that the White Sox wouldn't care to trade in the division. Now, if it were Crochet or Robert, I do not think he would ever go to Cleveland. I don't think they would sign off on that. But a guy like Eric Fetty, I think they wouldn't mind sending him there. So I got Cleveland getting him.
I got a fun one for you. I am going to say the San Diego Padres. They've spent a lot of money on a lot of players. You look at Eric Fetty, and his value when you look at the amount of money that he's owed. I think it's 7.5 this year. It might be the same amount of money next year. And you look at the fact that they need some help in their rotation right now. Joe Musgrove's on the 60-day IL as of last month. Randy Vasquez, I know he hasn't been pitching as well as they would have liked him to, but he's still pretty young. I think Eric Fetty would be a really nice piece in their rotation behind Dylan Cease, behind Michael King, who's pitching phenomenal. So I'm going to say Eric Fetty goes to the San Diego Padres because the money makes sense and the fit makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good call too.
Now, one guy that man, Michael Kopech is just a really interesting conversation around the trade deadline. Obviously, we haven't gotten out of him what we wanted to get out of him, even in the closer role. But his stuff is pretty nasty. I think if he finds the right home and he finds the right pitching, coaching staff around him, then I wouldn't be shocked if he turns into the pitcher that everyone thought he would be. So, with that being said, where's Michael Kopech going?
I am in the camp before I announce what team I think he's going to, that I think Michael Kopech's going to bring back a package that people are going to be surprised about in a good way. I think there are a lot of scouts and a lot of teams that are going to value him. And I also think they're going to take a look at his situation over the last few years and realize, wow, this guy's been in a pretty shitty situation in Chicago. And what I say by that is he was a starting pitcher originally. Then he was like swing man, start every now and then. Then he was kind of long relief in the bullpen, and now he's a closer. It's a lot of roles changing in a short period of time. I think that has kind of hurt him a little bit as a pitcher. And as a result, I think teams will look at his stuff and the fact that he isn't really costing much money. And I think he will bring back a decent return. I got the New York Yankees pulling the trigger and getting him.
Yep, I picked the same team. It just seems like the obvious fit. I think that could be a really nice place for him to land because, he's not going to feel quite as much pressure as he probably still does here because, there was a lot of pressure on him. I remember his debut when he made his MLB debut, when he started for the White Sox, and it drew a huge crowd. So I think he kind of feels like, this is kind of hard to say, but I feel like he almost feels like he disappointed the city and he disappointed himself. And Michael Kopech's a pitcher who gets into his head quite a bit when it's like you said, he's been thrown into quite a shitty situation. So to go to a place like New York with a big supporting cast, I think could be a really nice landing spot. So I said the same thing. I said the Yankees. Your favorite player, probably your favorite White Sox of all time, Tommy Pham. Where's he going and who's going to be your new favorite team because of it?
Yeah, I'm really going to miss this guy. We had him for half a year, but if I could build a team of anyone in the MLB, I could literally pick any player just to clone him and have him as my whole team, I would pick Tommy Pham. I think Tommy Pham will go to the Phillies. They need outfield help, and they specifically are kind of looking at corner outfield help, and he fits that bill there. And he always just seems to find his way on like real true contenders. So I think Philly will get the job done for him, or I shouldn't say get the job done, get a deal done for him, and I think that would be a good move for them as well, and I think he'll thrive there. So
yeah, definitely a low cost move, right? I think that would be a good place for him to land. I said the Seattle Mariners. Now I'm going to take it back to earlier this episode where I said I feel like the Mariners tend to grab lower profile players, cheaper players, but they find the right guys at the right time. That's Tommy Pham. I think he would be a great addition to the Mariners, just like he's been a great addition to the White Sox, but with the playoffs in mind. So I said Tommy Pham goes to the Seattle Mariners. All right, Chris Flexen. This is kind of an interesting name. He's a pitcher. If you're listening and you're not a Chicago sports guy, you never really know what you're going to get out of Chris Flexen. He's had some really nice outings and he's had some pretty rough outing. So where do you have Chris going?
I got him going to the Houston Astros. I think the Astros pitching rotation and just pitching staff in general is pretty banged up, and I don't think they're gonna go all in to make a big pitching move, but I think a move like this would make a lot of sense for them to do, because you can get a lot of starts out of Flexen, and then once your like regular rotation guys are healthy and back into the rotation, you can move Flexen to the bullpen and he'll fit in there no problem. So I kind of look at that as a really good fit for a team like Houston, and I think that with what he'll cost, which won't be a whole lot, will be a guy that they would be pretty interested in. So I'm going to go with Houston.
Yeah, I like that. I think it makes a lot of sense. I went with a team that has a lot of injuries this year, partly in their starting pitching staff, but more so with position players. I went with the Atlanta Braves. They've got Max Fried coming back here soon, but I feel like a guy like Chris Flexen, especially with the Braves being a pitching factory and learning how to get the best out of their pitchers, I think he was a really intriguing name for the Braves to pick up. They're still technically in the run for the playoffs. Maybe they look at Chris Flexen, they're like, yeah, actually, we see some mechanical stuff that we could fix, and you could be a really nice piece. So,
Yeah, kind
I
of
said
like what they
Atlanta
did
Braves.
with Ronaldo Lopez.
Literally, yeah. I mean, he's got the lowest ERA in baseball, maybe even still. So and honestly, he doesn't cost a lot, right? So like, even if this season doesn't work out, well, they didn't invest a lot into Chris Flexen. So
Yep.
I said the Braves. Now, my favorite White Sox of all time, the Illinois State great, Paul DeYoung. Where's he going, Sean?
I got him going to Seattle, and a big reason for that is J.P. Crawford, their starting shortstop, just got hurt. He's going to miss some extended time, it seems like. So I think getting Paul DeYoung is a guy that can plug in there and he can play shortstop for them while they're waiting for Crawford to get back. And then DeYoung has a little bit of flexibility defensively too, and you can DH him. So I think he's just kind of like a low risk move for a team like Seattle that can get another bat in their organization, but can also get a guy that can play good shortstop while Crawford's out. So I think it'll be Seattle, and I didn't think about that until Crawford was hurt and it was announced he was going to be out like today or yesterday. So situationally, I think that they'll just slide in and take Paul DeYoung.
I like it. I think it makes sense. I said the Milwaukee Brewers. This just seems to me like it's just such a Milwaukee Brewers move. And to be honest, man, Paul DeYoung has played well on a team that's kind of stayed under the radar. That's exactly what Milwaukee does on a yearly basis. They're fighting for the playoffs. They've kind of got a hole at third base that they could fill Paul DeYoung in at. And I think he's at 17 home runs for the year. So a guy that's probably going to end up at 25-ish home runs would be a really nice piece for Milwaukee. So I'm going to say he goes to the Brewers.
Nice.
Good deal. Well, then let's jump into some Bears talk. There's,
The Bears.
as you know, if if you follow football at all, there's not a ton going on right now. You've got training camp happening. It's exciting for teams like us who have a rookie quarterback. Just to hear how he's performing, hear how the team is meshing. So, training camp talk. What have you heard? Have there been any positives, any negatives? I certainly have some things that I want to talk about here, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so haven't been as locked in as I would have liked to be at this point, but a couple things I've noticed in my consumption of training camp is Caleb Williams, number one. Seems like he's pretty good at football. He's getting some praises for his ability to kind of grow through his progressions to getting the ball out quickly. From a lot of different podcasts and like interviews and stuff that I've heard, a lot of people are saying he's getting the ball out quickly. Now that might be by design just with the initial training camp practices here, but regardless, love to hear that. That's a good encouraging sign early on. One thing I've definitely noticed is it seems like him and Tyler Scott have quite the connection.
Yeah, dude.
they're connecting on a lot of big plays, a lot of touchdown plays. So hey, maybe this is Tyler Scott breakout year. It's going to be hard for him to find consistent time on the field with the receiving corp that deep, but seems like they've got a pretty strong connection so far. So that's definitely been one big takeaway that I found. And the other one I've noticed too is it seems like Gervon Dexter is getting a ton of praise from a lot of people based off the way he looks. And when I say looks, meaning he's dropped some weight, added some lean muscle, saying he looks really, really good heading into training camp. And as someone that's watched a lot of Gervon Dexter over the years, one thing that's always kind of prevented him from breaching his ceiling, dude's a freak athlete. He's always been that way, but he's been a little bit slow getting off the ball. So if he keeps this weight off and this is how he looks heading into the season and when the pads come out and stuff, then this might be a guy that really takes off and can be an integral part of the Bears defense there. So
Yeah.
those are kind of the main takeaways, the positive takeaways that I've seen. I'm curious what yours have been too.
Yeah, I'll start with Gervon Dexter because I was going to talk about that too. So my thing with him, his ability has never been in question. What I question just from the year that I've seen so far and what you've told me about him is his mental motor, right? Like this is a guy that historically, and from what I understand, this happened at Florida too, there's some weeks he wants it, there's some weeks he doesn't. And it's like this constant back and forth with Gervon Dexter. There was also some talk and some chatter, the fact that he's been practicing with defensive ends, which in my opinion, sign me up for that. Because if we're going to get this good side of Gervon Dexter, to have him and Montez Sweat on our defensive line and at defensive end, man, that would be sweet. So I've loved what I've seen from him. I love that people are hyping him up. Maybe it just instills some confidence in him that he needed. I noticed the same thing about Tyler Scott. I heard a lot about Caleb Williams and his ability to get the ball out quickly. One thing that, and I'll say this before I dive into my question mark, DJ Moore, he seems to have a great connection with Caleb Williams too. One thing that I guess confuses me a little bit is we haven't really heard much about Keenan Allen's connection with Caleb Williams. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he's just not getting the ball a lot. I don't know if the timing's been off. I don't know if there's enough reps. Obviously, it's still really early, so this is just something that we're noticing, during training camp. But I'd like to hear more about Keenan Allen and Caleb Williams because we did trade for the guy. He is probably going to be a Hall of Famer. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The other point that I love is, for those of you that don't watch a ton of football, so usually when like rookie minicamp and training camp starts, historically the defense is way ahead of the offense. And the offense, I mean, unless you have like a Patrick Mahomes caliber quarterback,
which we do, baby.
Yeah, the defense is way ahead of the offense. But what I'm noticing now with everything that I'm reading and listening to is the offense is starting to catch up and starting to play really well, which I love. I love that because that tells me you're seeing good things out of Caleb Williams. So that's just what I noticed, is the offense is starting to pick up the pace and carve up the defense a little bit, which, you know what, the way the Bears defense ended last year, they're going to be a pretty damn good defense this year. So for the offense to go out and have some good reps against this defense, I was really encouraged by.
Yeah, I one thing I've noticed too is it seems like there have definitely been some ups and some downs with Caleb Williams and the offense too, which, is also good to see too, because obviously that means, hey, defense is still looking pretty decent. Like they're, it's early on, so they're not going to be like firing on all cylinders, but the fact that they're still, performing pretty well and, not to drag Justin Fields or anything like that, but they're playing against a much better quarterback in terms of playing quarterback and what he can do with throwing the ball and stuff. So for them to be able to step in and give him a little bit of a hard time is definitely a good thing too. And one thing that I heard about as well is sounds like there's some trash talk back and forth, which I forget who was talking about it, but he made a comment along the lines of like, that was kind of fun to do because we didn't really have a lot of back and forth last year or the year before. So he was like, the offense wasn't really getting at us like they are now. So definitely some friendly competition, but it's good to see both sides are kind of, we want to be better. We want to be better. This is our day. No, this is our, so
Yeah.
definitely like seeing that too. I think it makes for, I'm sure, really, really fun practices to watch, which um, hopefully we get to start watching soon when Hard Knocks comes out.
It's probably Jalen Johnson. He's the ultimate shit talker. Oh, speaking of DBs, dude, did you see Tyreek Stevenson's pick?
Mm-mm.
Oh man, that was nice. You got to go back and look it up. He made a really nice play, but I'm excited to see him this year. I think he's going to be another lockdown DB for us, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a long-term Bear if he keeps this up. Cool. Well, then let's jump over to some Bulls talk. So summer league recap. We can talk about who played well, maybe somebody that earned more of a role with the team moving forward. I can start with diving into. We can talk. Obviously, we'll start with Modis, Buzelis, and just kind of let the conversation go from there. But he was an interesting story this summer league. He started out the gates hot and had a game. I think his first game was like 16 or 18 points, and then 21, and then 28. And then things started to kind of fall down he started to landslide a little bit there. But at the end of the day, summer league stats: 16 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 2 steals per game, and 2 blocks per game. Shot 33% from the field. What was your impression on Modis?
I think he was one of the best rookies in all the summer league, and I thought, I can't speak for every rookie because I didn't watch every single one, but just the confidence that he played with, you didn't see in every player on the court, and I think that is a really, really good sign for him heading into his rookie year. He's going to a team where, it seems like winning's not going to be a priority. So if he has, games where he's shooting poorly, but he's still getting shots up, like good on you. Keep doing that. Like your development and in your career are going to be a big part of how this future looks for the Bulls. So for him to come into the summer league, show that confidence right away, that was really, 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 really good to see, in my opinion. And just overall, he was probably better than I anticipated. Not that I thought he was going to be bad. I just didn't really know what to expect. He's a little bit of a wild card, being one of those G League Ignite guys. He had a very unconventional way to get to the NBA, from playing at multiple high schools to playing in the G League. In the G League, it probably similar competition to what he saw in Summer League, but still, like, he never played against college players. Like, granted, sure, he played against professionals, but they were like G League players and stuff. So just seeing him hold his own, it was fun, and I think he could be a big part of the Bulls' future. It just depends on how his development goes, but everything I saw out of him in summer league makes me feel positive, at least for him heading into the year. It's like, guy's got some tools, he's got a good motor, he's got confidence. Like, if he puts in the work, he could be a pretty good NBA player. So all in all, pretty satisfied with how he did, and really happy with what it's looking like we got here.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I think you hit on the key points. I mean, shot selection was my one question mark with him, and it obviously showed a little bit more the last couple of games, but he's rookie. He's young. He came from the G League, like you said. He'll learn, so I'm not worried about it. One guy we didn't get to see a ton of last year who looked really nice this summer league, Julian Phillips. He averaged close to 14 points per game, almost 6 rebounds per game, and shot 40% from the field. I was really encouraged with what I saw from him. Obviously, we drafted him because he was crazy athletic. I think he had the highest high jump maybe in draft combine history. I know for sure it was in his draft class, but we knew he was going to be athletic. But overall, his game, I think, looked really nice in the summer league.
Yeah, another guy that I was really happy with the way things turned out for him. just didn't really know a whole lot about him heading into summer league. I know obviously like he wasn't a great shooter in college, or I shouldn't say great, not really a high volume shooter in college. So when the Bulls drafted him 2 years ago, I was just kind of like, he doesn't really fit what they need. Like, so that was kind of disappointing. So that like really never caused me to get like excited about him. But now after seeing him play in the summer league and seeing what he did, I hope he gets some more minutes, some more regular minutes with the team this year because I'm definitely intrigued on seeing what he can be. So yeah, him and Buzelis were probably my two top like guys from this summer league. So two guys I was most excited about for sure.
Definitely. This next guy, DJ Stewart, he kind of picked up where Modest left off. Is the way that I saw it. As Modest was starting to slow down, shoot a little bit less efficient, DJ Stewart started to score more, take over more. He finished with 17 points per game, 3 rebounds, 4 assists per game. This is a local undrafted kid. He got a 2-way contract actually following the summer league because of this performance. So I was really impressed with what I saw from him. I didn't know anything about him going into the summer league, but I really enjoyed watching him play.
Yeah, he came from Duke. He was undrafted in 2021. I didn't know anything about him either. I know he wasn't like a Duke recruit or anything. He transferred to Duke his last year. Um, Good for him for getting rewarded with a contract after a strong performance in the summer league. That's all. I'm sure that feels great for him. It's exciting. He's catching on with his hometown team. I think he probably won't play much. He's got a long list of guards ahead of him on the Bulls roster. So, and that's nothing against him or his play. It's just the Bulls are constructed to where they have a lot of guards. So I think he's a guy that'll probably get a lot of run in the G League. But I mean, gosh, you need to call him up in an emergency situation or something. Cool. Was that who the heck was that point guard we had from LSU that we had to call up randomly a couple times and he like lit the world on fire and then disappeared forever? Gosh, what was his name?
Yeah, I can't remember for the
I'm
life of me, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
I'm
We
gonna
also
try.
had Carlick Jones on our team too,
I'm
and
gonna
he
try to
lit it
look him
up.
up. Let me try to find him.
While you're doing that, DJ Stewart, I
I
actually
got
just
it.
looked up his Duke statistics. He averaged 13 points a game his final season at Duke, which I'm surprised by. I wasn't familiar with his game, but what was the point guard?
Antonio Blakeney.
Yeah, dude, he was lit.
He he is out of the NBA.
I'm not surprised. He played for the Bulls during like their worst run.
He's in China. He's
Um,
been in China for a couple of years.
Good for him. Go ball, make that money. Now let's talk about the Summer League King, Sean. The only guy I've ever seen personally, I'm sure it's happened before, have a double double with 10 fouls as being part of the stat line. Adama Sanogo, he finished the Summer League with 15 points per game, 8.8 rebounds per game, so came close to averaging a double double. I've always liked this guy's game. I've always thought he could be an NBA player. Now, more of like a role player, right? But like I've always thought that he should have a spot on a roster in the NBA. What was your impression of what you saw out of Adama?
I've also always liked him a lot. I also think he could be a pretty good NBA player. I wish the Bulls would be giving this guy more minutes. I think, especially now, like there's no excuse not to. I know Vooch is in front of him and Vooch is getting the money, so Vooch has got to stay on the court. But they need to like bring him off the bench and really see what he can bring to the NBA during the regular season and stuff. And you know, they gave him a little bit of a run at the end of last year, and he did really well against like the Wizards. But you know, I just want to see him play more and get like a regular rotation as like the backup guy. But you know, obviously signing Jalen Smith, that puts another body in front of him. But you know, who knows? Maybe they do surprisingly get rid of Vooch and then we run with all these young guys. But just really hoping they actually give him a shot because I think he kind of deserves it. And I don't know what else they're going to get from him playing in summer league and playing in the G League before they got to figure out like, hey, what is this guy? You know? So and he's the
Of
type of
course.
guy, and he's the type of guy too where like I think if they did cut ties, a lot of teams would be interested in signing him. So why not give him an
Yeah.
opportunity?
That's literally was just what I was just about to say is before some other team signs him to like a two-way deal and he ends up being a really nice role
Yeah.
player. So
I don't want to.
honestly, maybe
I don't want to have to watch those revenge games, man. Like that would be painful.
no, no, yeah, definitely not. And maybe it's just Vooch gets traded or somebody gets hurt and then he gets his opportunity. But you don't want to see that. You just want to see him get his opportunity. And if it means Vooch gets traded, that's a win-win. So hopefully he'll get some actual playing time this season.
Yeah.
All right, now this is a storyline. We don't love to talk about this because the storyline in itself, or the person attached to the storyline, is just a disgusting human based on his history with the Blackhawks. But it's a big story, so we'll talk about it briefly. Edmonton Oilers hired the former Blackhawks GM Stan Bowman for the same position not long after he was reinstated following the Kyle Beach situation. What's interesting is the Oilers CEO went private on Twitter after the word got out. So to me, I think this is just disgusting behavior. I don't like it at all, especially the CEO going private on Twitter after the word got out. I mean, it just tells you like he knows that he made a nasty hire. But, with Stan Bowman's pedigree of winning championships, and I don't even credit him on those Blackhawks championships, then I guess the Oilers wanted to give him another chance. What are your thoughts?
Pretty surprised. I didn't think he would really get much of an opportunity in the NHL anymore, even though he was reinstated. Now, a guy like Quenneville, I thought some team would probably take a chance on him eventually. And I
Yep.
thought personally Quenneville would probably be the first of Al McIsaac, Quenneville, and Bowman all being reinstated. I thought Quenneville would be the first to actually get an NHL opportunity. For Edmonton, I don't understand this move. I get like you look at the resume, sure, he's won 3 Stanley Cups. You can argue he didn't really inherit much of the or bring over much of the guys on the 2010 team and stuff like that. But it's just like the end of his Blackhawks tenure, obviously with that whole situation aside, got really bad, and he was making a lot of like kind of like bonehead trades, and they traded I think like almost every first round pick for a good like 5 6 year span. He was taking on horrible contracts. And for a team like Edmonton that is just coming off a Stanley Cup and like so close, I don't think Bowman's the piece that gets you over that hump. I think there are a lot more qualified guys that can do a better job, and a lot more qualified guys who maybe haven't gotten an opportunity that deserve one. And I can't say like I'm excited that Bowman's back just because of everything that happened with that. I don't know. I don't think he deserved another opportunity, but here we are. And yeah, when your CEO has to go private on Twitter the day this comes out, I think you clearly are not making the smartest move. And yeah, I don't know. It's a questionable move for sure. I think for obviously more than one reason. And I think this is going to do more harm than good for Edmonton. So we'll see how it plays
Yeah.
out.
Well, we know who they're going to go after now. They're going to go get Brandon Saad because that's what Stan Bowman does. Is he keeps bringing him back everywhere he goes. All right. Well, that's enough of that. Let's talk about a new project talk that was just announced this week. It's called the 1901 Project, and what this is a $7 billion mixed-use campus project that's going to essentially build around the United Center and the West Side. So what it's going to feature is a music hall, an elevated park, obviously new parking, because if you're building additional buildings, you need parking, transportation, hotel, retail spaces. This apparently is a 10-year project that can begin as early as 2025. Now, this was just announced yesterday, so we don't know a ton of it other than like a hype video that went out and some renderings. But either way, I think it looks really cool. I think that the area surrounding the United Center definitely needs some work. So for them to do something like this, I think is really cool. I'm excited to see what it'll look like.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely that area could use some work and it's just kind of keeping up with the times. Like everyone's doing all these new projects, things like that. And facilities are important to athletes and families and guys who work for these organizations, things like that. So being able to build these different kinds of facilities, places to enjoy work, places to hang out with friends, family, whatever, for athletes and just fans, like, cool. I'm all for that. It's going to be a long play, obviously, with it being a 10-year plan. So um, won't really see the finished product for a while here, but yeah, just all good things that'll come from it. There'll be more jobs available with these spaces that open up. They can bring different events. They can do more fun stuff with fans on the grounds of where these teams play. And yeah, all in all, just exciting news, but nothing I can get too excited about quite yet because we got a long way to go.
Yeah, and we don't live there, so I think that's a little different for us. It's more of a unique situation, but it'll be cool to
Hey, you
see.
never know. I might just go hang out at the park one day.
All right, well, you should record a podcast from the park then, if that's the case. All right, guys. Well, that's it. That's all we have for today's episode. Next week's episode, this is actually going to be a really fun episode. Honestly, it'll probably be one of the best ones that we will ever record. Reason being, we've got the MLB trade deadline, so we'll be able to make comments on all the trades that happened, and on top of it, we'll get to talk more about the Olympics because the opening ceremonies are, I believe, Sunday. So we'll get to
Yeah.
talk about what we've noticed out of the Olympics so far. So definitely more to come. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to follow, make sure to share, send us a message on Instagram if you want us to talk about anything in particular. But as always, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see y'all next week.